Question for you. Is Ecotage morally justified? Ecotage is destructive or obstructive action designed to publicize or harass people believed to be harming the environment. Think of groups like Earth First, who argue that direct action is necessary when governments and corporations fail to protect the planet. People who engage in ecotage perform acts like disabling equipment, blocking logging roads, or damaging property to prevent environmental harm. So here's the question. Ecotage is dramatic, risky, and illegal, but is it morally wrong? Hey philosophers, I'm Jonas, and this is Philosophy Friday, a place where we like to ask interesting questions that are hard to answer. Be sure to check out the question for next week so you can be part of the conversation. Today's question, is it morally permissible to engage in vandalism or destruction of property in order to save the planet? Or should people who want to defend the Earth find other means to protect the planet? It's clear that our home is in trouble. Every year the world is getting hotter, and while it's true that the Earth goes through natural heating and cooling cycles, the Earth has not seen temperatures we're experiencing now for the last 800,000 years. If things get hotter, we'll be in big trouble. Obviously, climate change isn't the only thing threatening our planet. We need a healthy and diverse ecology of plants and predator and prey animals to keep humans healthy and thriving, and while it might not seem important to save a little fish, small changes have big consequences. But sometimes actions that are good for the many have undesirable short-term consequences for certain groups. These groups are usually large corporations that, through the process of making their products, pollute or harm the environment in some way. No one is saying that doesn't suck, but we still have to take action, and some groups have taken action into their own hands to prevent harm to the Earth. In philosophy, you'd call this utilitarian argument. Utilitarianism is the framework that posits that we should do things that lead to the greatest good for the greatest number of people. You often hear the phrase, the ends justify the means, and that's precisely what people who engage in ecotage argue. They say, it's better for our company to lose a few trucks than for these ecologies to be harmed. Ecotage is all about sticking it to the man, but do you want to know what would really show them? Subscribing, liking, and commenting. So should we engage in, or at least not condemn, actions that might harm others or a company, but might help the environment? Let's see what our community has to say. Cindy R. says, Jonas, you ask such hard questions. I'll take that as a compliment. An anonymous commenter wrote, I do think ecotage is acceptable. Personally, I would do anything to keep our planet and all of the people who live here, and I don't mean humans, safe. However, this is coming from the person who hates everything we've done to the Earth. We need to do what's necessary. Sammy Stellar says, I believe ecotage is morally justified as a matter of preserving one's own well-being, but not realistically impactful. The continued existence of life on planet Earth, especially human life, pumping the atmosphere with hydrocarbon waste, is its own form of ecotage from another perspective. I have to agree. I think ecotage is a misnomer since it's short for ecological sabotage, which is the opposite of its definition. I think that from now on, every new word in the English language should have to be approved by me. Sammy Stellar goes on to say, the idea of saving the planet overlooks the selfishness intent in the idea. Saving the planet really means preserving the ecology to support human life. Russ R. says, I don't believe it's justified, just like might does not make right. In fact, I think for the most part it will have the opposite effect, because instead of garnering support, I believe it ticks people off and turns them against what the group is trying to bring attention to. Also, I believe that if it doesn't directly affect a person, usually they ignore it or feel that it isn't something they can do. Climate change is real, but so big that it's easy to feel overwhelmed and not do anything. What are my thoughts? Let me first take you on a short tangent discussing something I found confusing about planetary health. I remember when I was in grade school and I learned about the rain cycle. Rain falls to the ground and collects in rivers and lakes and oceans. Then it evaporates, condensates, and falls as rain again. I'm sure most of you have learned this. But in school I was always confused because we were also told that we should turn off the faucet when we're brushing our teeth or washing our hands and take shorter showers, etc. And I always wondered, why? The water will evaporate and come down as rain again. But here's the thing I didn't understand. Most communities use more water than falls as precipitation in their area. If they are using more water than they receive in precipitation, where does the rest of the water come from? The answer, I eventually learned, is aquifers. Aquifers are a source of water in the ground, and we pump water out of them to drink, wash our dishes, water our lawns, and everything else we do with water. but not enough water is returning to these aquifers to replenish them. Now, I'm not going to get into what happens when an aquifer goes dry. Feel free to research it on your own, but suffice to say, it isn't good. I relate this story because I want to make something very clear. There are so many variables that affect our planet and environments that it's impossible for everyone to know everything. It's perfectly natural to question the information you receive, especially when it could impact your way of life. But at some point, hopefully before it's too late, we have to look at the reputable sources of data, not the people with ulterior motives. We can trust the scientists who have dedicated their lives to studying and learning this stuff. They aren't lying awake at night dreaming of ways to make corporations and ordinary people suffer. They're just ordinary people trying to help everyone else. I've put links in the description of sources I think you can trust. And if you want an example of what happens when we trust the experts, look at what happened with the hole in the ozone layer. Scientists noticed a problem, we took action as a species, and now the problem has been mitigated. I believe we can do the same for other problems we face, such as climate change. Okay, what does this have to do with Ecotage? Well, in short, for real this time, there are a number of groups of people who feel that no amount of polite discussion and earnest debate has made any difference. I sympathize with them. But I think we need to acknowledge that people have a tendency to redouble their beliefs when they feel attacked, and for that reason I believe that Ecotage will almost certainly backfire, and not in the way Ecotage groups want it to. It is extremely frustrating and feels like you're yelling at a brick wall about upcoming dangers, but I don't think extreme actions will ultimately help. It is absolutely true that some people need a wake-up call before we turn Earth into another Venus, but I don't think Ecotage is the answer. I think people considering protest should be careful so that their opponents don't just double down on their prior course. So what is a better alternative? While it seems infrequent, there are examples where peaceful protest has resulted in positive results. The Standing Rock Sioux peacefully protested the Dakota Access Pipeline, and that resulted in the pipeline being rerouted. This was beneficial not just to the tribe that lives there, but also the land the tribe lives on. I find this to be an inspiring story that shows that good outcomes are possible even when we don't go to extremes. So is Ecotage morally wrong? Well, like most things, there's a gray area, and part of life, for better or worse, is figuring out where on that spectrum we draw the line. I also just don't condone violence. Peaceful protest is not only acceptable, but important, and hopefully one day, before it's too late, everyone will be on the same page about keeping our planet healthy and thriving. Thanks for watching, and keep questioning. So what do you think? Is Ecotage morally justified? Comment below with your thoughts. And if you like this video, then join our conversation for next week, where we discuss advice we'd give our younger selves.